Hey guys, it's Carly from the College Prepster, and a couple of weeks ago I put up an Instagram asking for some questions, and I thought I would put together a video answering some of those questions. I'm actually going to Paris tomorrow, so I'm not sure when this is gonna go live, but my plan is to answer some of the questions on this video, and then I'm also gonna do a blog post where I can type out some of the other answers because I got a ton of questions and there's just no way I'm gonna be able to answer them all. But I thought I'd pick a few that I thought would be great on video and do it here, and then do some other ones in a blog post, and I'll be sure to link that below in the description box. Okay, so the first question is about my morning routine, and I'm actually pretty good about being a morning person. I hate waking up in the morning, but the minute my feet hit the ground, I'm ready to go. My dogs typically wake me up, more specifically Teddy. Hamilton likes to actually sleep in. It's Teddy who likes to wake up early, so he'll wake me up between like 5:30 and 6 a.m. The first thing I do is walk them, make a cup of coffee, I sit down at my desk, and I immediately start answering emails and making sure like nothing happened over the middle of the night that I need to be aware of. And I pretty much am on my computer for hours until I have to go work out or take a shower or something. But I like to just try to bang those out as quickly as I can while I'm the most awake. Lauren Sherritt asked, because you love reading, if you were going to write a book of your own, what would it be about and what genre would it be? So I'm pretty sure like every blogger at this point has gotten at least one book deal. It's kind of, I don't know, I mean everyone seems to be writing a book, but I always say no because I just am not quite ready to commit the time to writing it, and I want to make sure like when I write a book that it's something I'm really proud of, / make sure I actually have something to say. So I already have like an idea for a fiction book, kind of loosely based on how my college experience went, like intertwined with blogging and social media and all that. And that would be more of a fiction book if you've read like Lauren Conrad's LA Candy, but I don't really want to use the ghostwriter. I actually want to write it, so you would have to write it and take the time to do that. And then I also have this other idea for a book where I want to talk about how I really manage anxiety and have made it so like it doesn't stop me in my life, and like if I can do it, you can do it. So I think when people meet me, they're like, don't believe me how bad I used to be, or like that I actually do struggle. They think, oh, you seem so normal, but actually like on the inside sometimes I'm dying. So those are the two ideas that I have, like one's fiction, one's more of a non-fiction, like memoir-esque one. Keely V asked if I used a shower cap, which I think is actually pretty funny. Speaking of which, my hair is disgusting today because I went to the city and I actually had a bun because I had a cute top with like a big bow. I needed to have my hair up, but it's gross, and I just decided to film the video and not care about it. I only wash my hair every other day, but obviously take a shower every day, and when I'm not washing my hair, I put it in a shower cap. I get the cheap ones from Walgreens because I tend to lose them or like they break. And whenever I travel, I end up forgetting, and like sometimes I take them from the hotel just to have. Stacy Leggett asked, what are common misconceptions about working from home and being a blogger? So it's kind of like how I was a coxswain in crew, and if you're standing on the sidelines and you watch crew boats go by, it looks like such a smooth, like really beautiful experience of like these rowers just gliding on by and, you know, down the river. But when you're actually in the boat, people are sweating, they're throwing up, they're bleeding, they're screaming, they're grunting. It's like actually kind of a grueling process. And if it looks good from the shore, that means like what they're doing in the boat is correct. I think that's kind of like sort of how blogging is, where if you're doing your job well, people think it looks effortless and like there's not a lot of work behind the scenes, when in reality, there's just a ton of stuff going on. And I think people think stuff just like pops up and all of a sudden you're making this kind of money and you're working with these sponsors and you're going on these trips, when in reality, there's just been so much behind the scenes that you don't see. It's just not part of the nature about blogging. So that's a big misconception. Second misconception is about working from home, that you're not working. Like really irritates me. Oops, someone texted me. Really irritates me when people just assume that because I work from home, I can talk to them on the phone at any time of the day, like when it works for them. Just because I'm not going into an office, it still is a work day for me. Speaking of crew, Sabrina Della Vega asked, 5 things you've never left out of your coxswain bag back in your rowing days. So like coxswains have these little bags. I had this little North Face backpack. It was really cute. Always had sunglasses, I always had chloroseptic spray because I actually got a hernia my freshman year from yelling, and it would pull stomach acid into my throat. So I always had chloroseptic spray to numb the back of my throat. Wrenches, always had duct tape, and Band-Aids. Those were like the main things. My dad's calling. Hey, Dad. Okay, I'm back. Maddie Jewel Skusky, what do you do when you become stressed or overwhelmed with the future? I think one of the better things to do is to focus on kind of what is that next step, or like what's the next 2 steps. Like, don't look too far, but try to think like where you want to be going next and what you think is going to eventually lead you to happiness, or like what you want. And I also think it's like this huge misconception that you should know like right when you graduate college. Like, your major really doesn't mean anything at this point. It's really what you want to do, and if you want to completely change paths, like, go for it. Now's the time to do it. But also don't feel like you have to know what you want to do. Just kind of take something, try to meet as many people as you can, and see what happens along the way. I actually had quite a few questions about dating. Like dating advice. Historically, I've never really liked talking about dating on my blog. I can definitely see how it would be helpful to hear my perspective, just from the fact that it's always, I like hearing about dating also from other people. However, it just becomes really personal very quickly, so I try to avoid it. I will say a couple of things I think everyone should keep in mind when you are dating. One, I just think playing games is the dumbest thing. And if you want to text someone, you should text someone. And if someone's not texting you back or calling you back, it's not even worth your time. Like, don't date someone who's also playing games if you don't want to play games. And don't be the girl that's playing games with a guy, because it just leads to more games and more confusion. That's one tip. Second tip I would say is just to kind of be careful about being on dating apps, because, not obviously careful safety wise, of course, but a lot of times we think we know what we want on paper, and I think dating apps really are these on paper qualities, like, oh, is this person cute? Do I like where they went to college? Do I like their job? Are they the right height? And that's really not like how meeting people is in real life. So like, don't just immediately turn someone down or like swipe left or right or whatever the wrong way is, just because they don't hit kind of like a physical feature or a specific college, because you just really never know what someone's like, and those things are way less important than someone's true character. And those kinds of things are harder to tell just by looking at a profile. It's not until like you start talking or you meet up eventually. So that's another piece of advice. And the last one is to just be like open-minded about it. And if you want to be single, that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with being single at all. But own it and just say like, that is what you're going to be really happy about. It drives me crazy when my girlfriends are single, but all they do is complain about being single, because they end up being miserable to be around. Like, the girlfriends don't want to be around you. I can't imagine you're like fun to be around on dates if you're just going in with like a bad attitude right off the gate. So it's just perpetually going to lead to more singleness. I think just like being open-minded and grounded and saying like, I put it out there that you want to meet someone, and know that you can meet 99 wrong people, but it's really not until you meet that one right person that it really matters. So, don't be discouraged by bad dates. It just means you've found people that don't work and that you're one person closer to someone who will. Ooh, Bella W11 asked, with your new workout routine and lifestyle, when did you start noticing results? I would say I noticed results like almost immediately in terms of my mental outlook. Like literally just working out once a day, I immediately started to feel better just in life. But I would say physically, I started working out at the end of October. And I would say by January, I could really start to see actual physical changes. Like, my body started feeling stronger, and it was really cool. So like a couple of months. And it really was me consistently doing it. It wasn't just like bopping in and out. Mora the Explorer, I like your username, says, hey Carly, I'm looking to break into YouTube and I'm terrified about being on camera by myself. How did you get over the awkwardness talking to a camera? It's really awkward, like very awkward. And it doesn't feel natural, really. So I think you just like, if you really want to do YouTube, you just kind of suck it up and do it. I obviously took a huge break because there was a huge period where I didn't want to do it, and that's okay too. Okay, Hallie C. White asks, best tips on how to save money as a young professional while also being able to travel or go out with friends. I think if you want to save money, there's two things you have to keep in mind. One, you need to be really clear with yourself, like what are your actual expenses? Like what things do you absolutely have to pay and what things can you live without? Part of knowing your expenses is knowing what you're bringing in. For me, I needed a second income, which was my blogs. I had a real job and I had my blog income on top of that, and that allowed me to save a lot of money throughout the year just so I had this like cushion because I didn't really feel financially sound. I did not spend any money on cabs. I had like a monthly subway pass, which was like a pretty big expense actually, but it saves money in the long run. I took the subway or walked everywhere. I made sure that when I was going out to eat, I was eating out with friends and it was part of the experience. It wasn't me just like ordering out because I was bored or like didn't want to cook. And honestly, if you can kind of cut back on drinking out, I think that'll also save you a lot of money. Someone asked for a life update, basically just how my life is. I don't like to use like the B word, busy, but I would say life is pretty hectic in a good way. I just decided that my mantra for the year was that I was just gonna be all in and not hold back and just say yes to everything that I wanted to say yes to and say no to everything that I didn't want to do. And as a result, I've kind of been all over the place and traveling a ton and honestly having like the time of my life. I also have a new manager for my blog. She's so amazing and just makes my life as a blogger a lot easier. It really makes my business side of my blog, I've noticed a huge difference, both in terms of like finances, but also just feeling confident as a blogger, which I think is huge nowadays. So life is good. Hampton Ivy asks, do you ever receive negative comments or feedback? How do you deal with it? Okay, this is kind of like a twofold question. I think you have to know like the intention of the person. Like, is this person intending to hurt you or are they trying to help you? And if they're trying to hurt you, there's really nothing you can say or do that's gonna change their mind because that's their prerogative and they are entitled to do that. But you also kind of have to protect your own sanity in the process. So if I think that someone's really trying to just hurt me and it's not constructive, I really ignore it. And I'd read on a blog that I read, this was a couple years ago, but I still think about it, like, this is my space, and if, you know, some dog came into your, this is kind of gross, but I like the metaphor, but if a dog came into your house and pooped on your carpet, you're not just gonna like leave the poop on your carpet, you're gonna clean it up. And that's kind of how I feel about negative comments. And like when you establish that, okay, there's a difference between like a constructive comment and just a completely negative, it's trying to be hurtful comment. I'm all for constructive criticism. I feel like most of the time it's more on the negative side than just constructive, but like if it's something that I think is hurtful, I'm not gonna just leave it there, and I just delete it and set the precedent that it's unaccepted. But as far as feedback, it's twofold again. Like, a lot of times negative feedback can sound really loud, and sometimes it's easy to think like, oh, someone said that they hate reading this type of blog post, I should absolutely stop doing that. But you really kind of have to look at the numbers, and just because one person says they didn't like it, it could actually be your #1 source of traffic from Pinterest for the month, because those posts do really well on Pinterest. So that's, I mean, it's unfortunate that one person doesn't like it and they're really vocal about it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that just because one person doesn't like it means that that's what you have to do. You really should take it into account and be analytical and be strategic as you're making the decisions. It's one factor within a bunch of factors you have to consider. And Haley M. Barton, I'll end on this one, asked, have you ever considered changing the name of your blog when you're not in college? I would say I change my mind about this every other day. I love the name The College Prepster just because it's a brand I created, and I think it could have legs beyond the blog somewhere down the line. Like, I'd love to have a back to school line with Target or Pottery Barn Teen, and I'm just not like ready to just give up the name. So while it doesn't make sense for me in my life right now, I think that there's a potential use for it down the road, and I don't want it to just shelve it and like let it kind of die a slow death. But it definitely helps my blog in some ways, in that it's great SEO and my audience is predominantly in college. So it does describe my audience to a certain extent, but then it also holds me back because it's brands like get confused because they think I'm in college and you have to kind of explain it. So yeah, I go back and forth. Who knows what I'll end up doing, but probably will have to make a decision like one way or another by the end of the year. Like, okay, am I gonna change my content? Am I going to get into product line? Am I going to change the name of my blog and just let the College Prepster die? But if you have any advice or feedback on that, let me know. Who knows, keeps me up at night, to be honest. So those are the questions I'm gonna answer on the vlog, and I'm gonna go back through and try to put together some more written questions. I know I got a lot about blogging and stuff that I think it's just gonna be better to type out. I'll leave that in the description box below. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment if you have a follow-up question or if you have an idea for a video in the future. I'm always open to suggestions and ideas. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.